Hello, everyone. My name is Sydney Miller, and this is my presentation on the effect of STEM role models on interest in STEM careers. The STEM field has been growing rapidly. However, most of the people in a STEM career are men. While at first the disparity between men and women in STEM was due to women's inability to get a college degree, it has become clear that women's lack of higher education is not the only thing keeping them away from STEM. The goal of this study is to identify how role models influence their desire to go into STEM. In 2021, society retains antiquated ideas about gender roles. While these ideas have changed, there is still the notion that men can only do masculine things and women can only do feminine things. As a result, fewer women go into STEM as it is seen as a masculine field. Because women are currently underrepresented in STEM, young girls are discouraged from taking an interest in STEM because of their lack of female role models. A study done by Herman et al. 2017 investigated how having a female role model in STEM would affect young women's performance in a STEM-related class. The study hypothesized that students who read a letter from a female role model would achieve a higher course grade than those who did not read the letter. Additionally, they hypothesized that the role model letter would have a greater effect on chemistry students than psychology because of the greater stigma against women in physical sciences. The results supported both hypotheses, showing that the women who had a female role model performed approximately 4 times better than those who did not have a female role model. The researchers concluded that having a female role model helps women feel more comfortable pursuing a STEM career. As a result, a cycle is formed. Because there are fewer women in STEM, there are fewer female role models in STEM. The lack of female role models in STEM leads to less girls being interested in STEM, and thus the cycle continues. In addition to having more female role models for young girls to look up to, addressing the gender biases that students and teachers hold is imperative to bringing more young women into STEM. A different study conducted by Hand et al. 2017 observed different biases held by teachers and students. The study hypothesized that both teachers and students expect boys to perform better in STEM classes and girls to perform better in humanities. The study consisted of 44 teachers, 28 of which were women, and 121 students, 61 of which were girls. 15 teachers indicated that they taught in a STEM discipline, and 23 indicated that they taught a humanities class. The results supported the hypothesis, indicating that the teachers and students associate STEM classes with masculinity and humanities with femininity. Additionally, the study found that girls perceive themselves as less competent in math and science than boys. People tend to pursue subjects they see themselves as good at. Because girls tend to think that they are not good at math or science, they don't take as many advanced math and science classes as boys do. During the study, when the children were asked if they ever learned about any women in math or science, they responded that they had only heard about women in science but not math. Girls who associate math and science with women tend to take a greater interest in math and science. By failing to teach children about women in math and science, the education system is pushing young girls away from STEM. Role models are not the only factor that determines a young woman's interest in STEM, but also the treatment of her peers. A study on school connectedness hypothesized girls reporting greater levels of gender discrimination would report lower school connectedness and lower STEM orientation. Rogers et al. 2021. This study also found that poor peer treatment has been linked to disinterest in math and science. It also causes girls to believe they are less capable of doing well in math. As stated previously, people pursue subjects they are good at. When someone thinks they are bad at a certain subject, their interest declines. Gender discrimination and stereotyping around STEM also causes disinterest in STEM. People do not want to be in an environment where they feel unwelcome. Because of the gender biases against girls in STEM, girls are pushed away from STEM for fear of workplace discrimination. Another reason for the lack of women in STEM is that women choose to major with other women. Because there are less women majoring in STEM, fewer incoming freshman females will choose to join a STEM major, which becomes a cycle of women not choosing STEM. A study conducted by Schuster Martini predicted young women, but not young men, will anticipate more negative and less positive effects studying in a department with lower proportion of female students. Young women, but not young men, will have lower intentions of choosing a major in a department such a young women, but not young men, will have lower intentions to major in such a department than in one with a higher proportion of female students. The results supported the hypothesis that women expected themselves to perform better when there were more women in a class. The study also concluded that as more women were in a certain major, the other women in the major would have a decrease in their fear of underperforming. However, male students did not seem to have the same reaction as women. When looking at the gender statistics and those majoring in education, the men majoring in education did not see the lack of other men affecting their performance. The way women see themselves, other women, and men also affects their decision to go into STEM. A Portuguese study in 2017 found that girls who were more comfortable around boys gravitated towards STEM more than girls who were more comfortable with other girls. The study found that girls who fit into this category feel more comfortable around masculine figures and see other girls as fake and complicated. Sawadra et al., 2014. The women who hold this perspective are subconsciously associating STEM with masculinity, even if they do not identify as a male. Because they are more comfortable around masculinity, they gravitated towards a field that is associated with masculinity. In the same study, other women said that they see being around mostly men as being normal and are indifferent to the amount of men and women they work with. Similar to the previous group, women who hold this perspective also see STEM as a masculine field, as they like being surrounded by men, as they feel like being surrounded by men is normal. And because STEM is male dominated, a woman would typically have many more male coworkers than female. Additionally, women in this group do not see a problem with the gender gap in STEM because they are indifferent to the percentage of male and female coworkers. Education is not the only influence in young children's lives. Children today are also heavily influenced by the media around them, especially television shows. A study conducted by Hunting et al. 2018 revealed that the television shows have an effect on how children see themselves and the gender they identify with. The study had several hypotheses, two of which are terms related to STEM will occur more frequently on channels targeted at boys, and also terms related to humanities will be more common on channels targeted at girls. The study also found that girls tend to value education more than boys. However, girls see themselves as better at humanities and arts rather than STEM courses. The results of the study supported the hypothesis finding. Television channels targeted towards boys tended to use more STEM educational terms than television channels targeted towards girls. The channels targeted towards girls tended to use more educational terms related to humanities, further reinforcing the stereotype that girls are better at humanities and boys are better at STEM. By subliminally teaching children the strict gender roles of society from a young age, they will grow up believing unquestionably in the societal norms for their gender. The gap in men and women in STEM is not a problem confined to the United States. It is a problem that can be found across the globe. A study examined 24 different countries, which include Austria, Azerbaijan, Belgium, Croatia, Czech Republic, Denmark, Estonia, Finland, Greece, Hungary, Ireland, Iceland, Italy, Lithuania, Latvia, the Netherlands, Norway, Poland, Portugal, Slovenia, Spain, Sweden, and Switzerland. McDonald's 2015. McDaniels 2015. To conduct the study, at least 150 different schools from each country were chosen to participate. From those 150 schools, 4,500 students were chosen to participate in the study. To account for the differences in student populations in each country, the results for the different countries were inflated to match the student population for that particular country. The study concluded that across 24 different countries, boys were still expected to end up in a STEM field more than girls were. To be exact, the study found that boys are 64% more likely than girls to expect work in a STEM occupation. The study also discovered that as gender equality increased, the gap between men and women in STEM decreased. While much research has been done in the STEM gender gap, while much research has been done on the gender gap in STEM, the gap still exists. That leaves the question of why it still exists. Are the schools not changing to decrease gender stereotypes? Is there no viable solution to the problem? The purpose of this research is to identify how early childhood environments affect young women's desire to go into STEM. To conduct this research, the following hypotheses will be used. Respondents who can identify more STEM role models with a shared gender identity will show more interest in STEM than those with fewer role models with a shared gender identity. To gather data on my hypothesis, the survey questionnaire method will be used. The method of sampling will be convenient sampling. Convenient sampling is the best fit because of the limited amount of time to gather data. As a result of the shorter time frame, there was not adequate time to generate a sampling frame. The questionnaire was distributed in late November on the social media apps Instagram, Snapchat, and Facebook. Those willing to participate would click on the link and fill out the survey. In addition to distributing the survey on social media, the members of the Cumberland Valley Science Olympiad team also asked to participate in the survey. The participants are unlikely to have many, if any, common characteristics. To be able to use this research to make generalizations about the population and society as a whole, the sample must reflect a wide range of ethnicities, political and religious beliefs, and ages. So if the researcher targeted any specific characteristic or ruled out any specific characteristic, then the sample would not adequately represent society. The goal is to receive at least 100 responses from the survey. There were no specific instructions given at the start of the survey, and there was no incentive given to participants. As a result of there being no incentive, the survey was kept brief to encourage participation, as most people do not willingly fill out a long survey without any incentive. The first question on the survey was, how old are you? The respondents could choose between 0 to 12, 13 to 18, 19 to 35, 36 to 60, or over 60. The next question asked the respondent about their race, and the choices were Caucasian/white, African American, Hispanic or Latino, Asian, Native American, prefer not to say, and Pacific Islander. The last question about the respondent was gender. The response categories were female, male, and non-binary, and other. For all opinion opinionated questions and statements, the respondents could choose between strongly agree, neutral, disagree, and strongly disagree. The first opinionated question was, do you think role models are important? And the following questions were also asked. Do you think role models can influence a young adult's career choice? Do you think having a role model with a shared gender identity is more influential than having a role model with a different gender identity? Do you think being able to closely relate to a role model is important? The next one is an opinionated statement, and they would also indicate the level of agreement. Not having any role models in STEM decreases interest in STEM. Not being able to relate to most professionals in STEM decreases interest in STEM. The next section of questions measures the respondents' current interest in STEM and the number of role models they have with a shared gender identity. The question was, how likely are you to pursue a STEM career? And the respondents could choose from very likely, neither likely nor unlikely, unlikely, and very unlikely. And the last question on the survey was, how many STEM role models with a shared gender identity do you have? And the response choices were 0, 1 to 2, 3 to 5, and over 5. The questions that served as operation definitions were, do you think role models influence a young adult's career choice? Do you think having a shared gender identity is more influential than the role model with a different gender identity? What is your current interest level in STEM? How many STEM role models do you have? The first question helps to measure how much influence the respondent thinks a role model has. The second question measures the importance of role models with a shared gender identity. The third question ascertains how interested the respondent is in STEM. While the survey will be distributed to people who are not as interested in STEM, seeing how people who are interested in STEM feel about role models shows a stronger or weaker correlation between the variables. The final question listed measures how many people who are interested in STEM have a STEM role model. This result will help to strengthen or weaken the correlation between the number of role models with a shared gender identity and the amount of interest shown in pursuing a STEM career. One methodological challenge is being able to get a diverse sample. As stated before, to be able to make generalizations based on the result must be collected from a sample that represents the general population. A way that a lack of diversity can be dealt with is to specify which groups did have a significant number of respondents and therefore a significant representation in the survey group, so that a group is not therefore a significant amount of representation in the survey group. Now onto the results section. To begin analyzing the results from the survey, each opinionated response was assigned a number on a scale of 1 to 5. 1 was strongly disagree or very unlikely, and 5 was strongly agree or very likely. And the last question was assigned numbers 1 to 4 instead of 1 to 5 because there were only 4 options. Next, each opinionated question was assigned a weight based on how relevant the question was to the hypothesis. Opinionated questions 1 to 3 had a weight of 1, questions 4 and 5 had a weight of 2, 6 and 7 a weight of 3, and the final 2 questions had a weight of 4. The next numbers from each weighted column were totaled so that every respondent had a score to determine how much role models affect their desire to pursue a STEM career. Those above a 56 were considered to believe that role models can influence interest in STEM. The score of 56 was found by inputting a 3, as 3 represents a neutral response, with the exception of the last question. A neutral response was a 2. The results of this survey accepted the given hypothesis, as overall the majority of respondents agreed with the statements given. No conclusions could be drawn for any specific demographic group because the sample was not diverse enough. And here are the data tables from each demographic group. And here is the overall disregarding demographic group. And these two charts I had on at the beginning were found at this website here. Lastly, discussion. By increasing the amount of role models in STEM, more people would be attracted to a STEM career. To create more role models for students, the first step would be increasing their exposure to important people in STEM. Furthermore, having role models that share gender identity with those interested in STEM may help keep them interested in STEM, especially for the minorities in STEM, which are women and non-binary people. To improve the study, a more diverse pool of respondents would be the first step. Most people who responded to the survey were white women. By increasing diversity, a better understanding of the general population's beliefs can be obtained. Another way to improve the study would be to have more respondents. For this survey, there were only 108 respondents. A way this research can be expanded upon would be to analyze different demographic groups individually. This would give a better understanding of how to encourage people from underrepresented groups to enter STEM. Thank you for watching my presentation, and I hope you have a great day.